Right, hi everyone. I've been asked to do an approach to Innsbruck, Lima Oscar Whiskey, India. I believe it was the Localizer DME West and X-Plane 11, and it's quite an interesting approach because you come in from a waypoint Elmham on magnetic track of 101 until you intercept the localizer, and you're supposed to descend without a glide slope, but according to the reference, I believe vertical speed here based on your actual ground speed at the time, and you need to keep an eye on this table while you're descending, um, based on the Oscar Echo Juliet DME, that when you are crossing these distances, you need to be at these altitudes according to, of course, the local QNH. And as you go down until you are at 5,000 feet altitude, which is about 6.5 nautical miles from Oscar Echo Juliet, and that's when you're supposed to turn around or do a missed approach if you cannot see the runway visually, because the AMDA here is 5,000 feet. As you can see, it is, since it's called an MDA, it is definitely a non-precision approach because you have to continue visually at the end. And if you do see the runway and everything is good here, you're supposed to continue visually by going a little bit farther ahead with the Romeo uniform Mike NDB behind you, and circle sharp turn to the right and come back and land in the opposite direction. So it is quite interesting, and I thought that why not make it more interesting in the sense that let's not use a GPS at all, even getting there. We will take off from EDDM, Echo Delta Delta Mike. That's going to be our takeoff airport. And what we're going to do is there is a VOR, Mike Alpha Hotel, a little bit southwest of the airport. And I know that the radial from that VOR to the Elmham waypoint is I believe is 204 magnetic. So let's catch this radial from the VOR 204, and I know the distance between the VOR and this waypoint is exactly is about 66 nautical miles. So what's going to happen is we're going to take off from the EDDM, catch the 204 radial from that VOR, keep an eye on the distance because it's also a DME. When we're close to 66 nautical miles, we're going to turn left to 101. Keep that magnetic track or heading and compensate for wind if there's any until the localizer signal comes alive. Once it comes alive, we're going to turn to 066 and start descending according to the table. So the whole trip without a GPS. Obviously in real life, I would not do this. You would use a GPS, so all the aids available to you in the cockpit in order to make your flight more safer. But here, let's enjoy the challenge. You know what happens if GPS goes out? Satellites. You don't get a satellite signal. Can you continue? Can you figure out where you are? A little bit of situational awareness. So the plan is as follows again. We're going to take off from EDDM, catch this radial 204 for about 66 nautical miles. When we get, I know 66 nautical miles because I did measure this distance to Elmham, and then once we get to Elmham, or a little bit before Elmham, we start turning on track 101 at 11,500 feet. That's when we're supposed to be coming in. And once we see that the localizer signal is coming alive, we intercept it to 066 and start descending according to the localizer and this table. And when we get to 5,000 feet, we have to be able to see the runway because that's the decision altitude. And then we continue visually, which means you go straight ahead, and then we turn, circle to the right while we're still descending. I believe we're going to have 3 more thousand feet to go down at that point because the airport elevation is about 1900 feet. Okay, so let's get started and have some fun with this. Okay, I don't know why my yoke is dead. Okay, so now we are on runway, I believe 26 left, Echo Delta Delta Mike, and we need to set up a few things here before taking off. Obviously, we need to check the local QNH. I'm not really concerned about that right now. I mean, you would obviously set the local QNH for the airport that you're taking off from, but I believe that QNH at Innsbruck is 1007. Okay, we might as well do the correct procedure. Here we go, looking up the QNH Munich weather meters. Oh, 1007. Yep, close to each other. But it wouldn't really matter. I care about the airport where we're supposed to land. And just to show you something real quick, if you look here, I did set the actual barometric pressure at the sea level to be 1007, and I set a layer of clouds extending from 6,000 feet to 12,000 feet. So we pretty much stay in IMC conditions until we get to the 5,000 feet of the MDA, I'm sorry, and we can continue visually. And I put the visibility about 7.5 kilometers, which also adheres to the chart. So this way we make it challenging. It is an IFR approach, so make it pretty much IMC until we get to the point that we're supposed to continue visually. Because if we can't see the runway at that point at 5,000 feet at the MDA, then we have to commit a missed approach. But we're gonna do the approach until landing. Anyways, okay, so resume the flight. 1007, that's set. Let's now tune in the frequency for the VOR. I believe it's 115.2. So bring this here. 115. Sorry. Click here. 115.2 and switch. It's alive. Okay. Again, I do not want to see the GPS, and I'm going to clear this menu. Enter. And just leave this in the corner so we can get an idea of the distance. Okay, I'm now going to set the autopilot. We need to get up to 11,500 feet altitude. I'm gonna set that right now, as you can see here. 11, okay. 11,600. I'm going now to adjust the heading log, the GPS, to the runway direction, so we can maintain runway heading after taking off. And I believe the radial we were supposed to catch was 204. Okay, it was set that too. So that's the radial we can see right here that we are supposed to catch. And it, according to the VOR, it says it's at 2. Okay, which means we are on the opposite side of that radial, and everything is consistent. Okay, come back here. I don't need the yoke. Turning off the yoke, we'll take the lights. We don't need taxi lights, obviously. And don't care much about the landing lights right now, even though they're supposed to turn them off when we're up in the air. Okay, so altitude, vertical, and then we set up vertical speed maybe 800 feet per minute. So we got everything ready for the autopilot. VR frequency is good, and then we'll tune in the NDB frequency for the approach chart, just to have it as extra aid in just a sec. Okay, flaps 1. And these are the brakes, and then we go. Okay, I think we can roll now. Gear up, flaps up, autopilot is on, and now we're gonna maintain runway heading. And start climbing at 800 feet per minute to our target altitude. Let's go up a little, and then we turn left in order to catch the radial we're supposed to catch. Okay, so far so good. Flaps up, gear up. QNH is good. We're gonna get into that layer of cloud right now. Maybe anti-icing. It's pretty cold. Bum 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 bum. Here we go. That's the engine anti-icing. Okay, everything looks good. Bleed air valves. Okay. Checking the gauges. Okay. Alright. Climbing up, and we're trying to catch that radial, and as we said before, we know that the distance is at 66 nautical miles. This distance 66, so when we're close to 66 nautical miles and we're over Elmham, that's when we're supposed to turn to 101 and have this ready. Alright, so at this point then, let's have some frequencies on standby. We know that the localizer DME is 109.7 or 0.7 if you say in the US, decimal in Europe. 109.7. So we'll come here. Okay, 109.7. Here we go. So that's ready on standby. And we know that there is an NDB 320. We have that one tuned into. Sorry, here we go. 3. I'm gonna come alive now. We can use that also as an additional 8. And we said that coming back here. .7 109.7. Bring this back here. Stand by. Very good. Okay. We'll let the autopilot do its thing. We're still climbing up. We have to be at 11,500 feet as we get close to the airport. I think it's time to maybe intercept a little bit better. I would turn left now. Using the HSI heading, turn the heading a little. To get intercepted sooner. Okay. And we just entered the soup. We are in IMC. And we don't need a GPS. Very close to the VOR right now. Okay, looking good. VOR is behind us, and we are on the correct radial, which is 204. And the distance now is increasing from the VOR. We're going southwest of it, pretty much, and we need to keep an eye on that. So when we get close to 66 nautical miles, that's when we're supposed to turn left to 101, as I recall. Yep. And then at that point, when we turn to 101, we don't need that VOR anymore, and we just switch the frequency to the Oscar Echo Juliet Localizer DME and wait till it becomes alive. And then when it comes alive, you can see the needle moving, and that's when we turn 066 and try to stay on it and start descending. We will know our speed in advance, ground speed, and accordingly we will descend with the corresponding vertical speed. Okay, so we'll take a break now and come back when we're close to 66 nautical miles away from Mike Alpha Hotel. Okay, we're back again. We're at about 51.5 nautical miles away from the Mike Alpha Hotel VOR, and we know that the distance between the Mike Alpha Hotel VOR and Elmham waypoint is about 66 nautical miles. So I slowed the aircraft down to 120 knots, and we need to know when to turn before. Since I'm going to use the autopilot to turn to from Elmham to turn to 101 in that direction. So that's about we're on magnetic track right now, a radial of 204, so it's about 100 degrees. Let's say 90. It takes about 1 minute to do 180, so 30 seconds. And if we're at 120, so that means we need to start the turn, I would say, about 1 nautical mile before. So at 65, well, a little bit before 65, since it's 100 degrees, I would say maybe 64. 64.9. I will turn to 103 so I can catch that direction at the not overshoot it, let's put it that way. So you don't turn right on Elmham, because when you're going at this fast, it doesn't make sense to turn here. That means you're gonna go in this direction, like parallel to it here. We might have a problem catching it, and we go this way. I'd rather actually turn a little bit earlier. I can clear the terrain and go a little bit parallel to 101 here earlier and catch this guy, and then use the DME distances for the elevation and so forth. Anyways, we're gonna try to be as accurate as possible. So at 64.9, I will start making the turn. The distance between Elmham and this point is about, I believe, 23.8 nautical miles. So 23.8 nautical miles. That means 23.8. The velocity is distance over time. You want to find the time. So it's the distance over the velocity over 120. Okay. 0.19 hour. 0.19 times 60. It's about 11 minutes. So we're going to be in that direction for about 11 minutes. That's when we should be able to intercept the localizer. It's a good idea to keep track of these things and write them down. So we will start our turn at 64.8, 64.9 distance here. And once we start the turn, we know we're going to be for about 11 minutes. Once we're on 103, 11 minutes until we intercept the localizer. And we'll go ahead and plan ahead then. Let's just focus now on the turn, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do next once we're established on direction 103 from Elmham to intercept the localizer. .120 is a decent speed, and the reason why I want to stick to 120 gives me more time to do things, to plan ahead, as you can see, and especially now that we need to stick to this vertical speed, about 1,000 feet per minute, in order to follow the descent slope that's been specified. Look at this very tricky terrain. You can see the tips of mountains here. Wow. I definitely would not attempt to do this approach in a GA aircraft or a single engine in IMC. I would definitely go dual engine or twin engine, because if something goes wrong I can divert. And I wouldn't even do it in IMC conditions or bad IMC conditions, to be honest with you, in real life. But it's good to practice these situations in the simulator so you feel comfortable about your ability to make decisions on the spot and to plan ahead. Okay, 62.2, getting close. We know the distance between the two, the Mike Alpha Hotel VOR and Elmham is 66 nautical miles. And we're going at 120 standard rate turn using the autopilot. So at 64.8 or 0.9 we start turning. Here we go. Now I'm going to start my turn to the left using the autopilot, and I would start a timer. We know that's about 11 minutes to intercept the localizer. I don't need this guy anymore. I don't need the VOR. So I'm going to switch now to the localizer Oscar Echo Juliet. Alright, so we are in this leg now. Distance 23.8 nautical miles. We know it's going to be about 11 minutes to get here to intercept. At the when we get close, we need to turn to 066 and then use the autopilot to stay aligned with the localizer, but then start descending manually with 1,000 feet per minute. We already know that because we specified our speed, ground speed, to be 120. Now, coming back here, I think it would be a good idea now to have that table in front of us to check our altitude against the distance from the Oscar Echo Juliet DME. Alright, we know this point, just keep an eye, we know this point of interception, I believe it's 20.4 nautical miles away. So it helps also to look at the distance here. That we're a little bit too far still, but we're good to go. Alright, so let's get the vertical speed ready. And also save the flight in case something goes wrong with the X-Plane simulator. Here we go. Well, I'm gonna have a vertical speed of minus 1,000. That's also already on the autopilot. And set. 11 minutes. Only 2 minutes. We still got some time before we turn to heading 066. Alright, and if we want to do a little bit of simple calculation, 10166, it's about 35 degrees. It takes 30 seconds for 90. So that's about 10 seconds ahead. 10 seconds ahead, that's it. Oh, well, we don't have a distance to actually judge it by, but I think we got, it's not really a sharp, like a big turn, so we're good to try to wing it, and we'll use the localizer to help us out. It's also good to set the course. I think the course is 066. I would set the course too. Give us a good idea. But in reality, you don't really need to set a course because a localizer, in essence, using difference in depth modulation to actually set you on the right course. All right, back to excuse me. Said about 11 minutes. Been about 4 minutes now. So we are now on this leg right here, and this point is about 20.4 nautical miles away. So no, we can actually do some calculations. We're good. So we have 120. We said 30 degrees is about 90 degrees is 30 seconds. 30 degrees is 10 seconds. So 120 divided by 120 divided by 6. About 0.16 nautical miles away. Wow, very short. I would actually now activate the EDF, and it's a good idea to have the EDF activated because for the NDB, I believe it's Romeo Uniform Mike, just to give us an idea where we are. Extra navigational aid is always a good idea. Alright, so according to my plans now, it's been 6 minutes. We need another 5 minutes or so, and we're supposed to be at 20.4 nautical miles at this point, or close to 20 something. 20, and we're keeping an eye here. This distance is decreasing. Very good. So we're going to turn to 066 and activate nav in order to navigate according to the localizer and start descending. Ground speed is 140. Wow. Tailwind. Definitely some tailwind. If the guard speed is 140, we need to descend a little bit more. Yeah, 1166. But that might change when we turn. So we'll adjust accordingly, according to the table. Getting closer, as you can see, to the distance of 20 nautical miles. Of course, this is like a radius, I mean an arc. So we could be here, we could be here, but this is our guide, which is the localizer, which we need to be aligned with. Start descending at Kudav. I would probably good idea to get the table ready to make sure we meet those conditions. And it's a good idea also to save the flight here too. Alright, getting close to 20 nautical miles. And we'll see, obviously, this guy moving here. Okay, it is moving closer. Very nice. We're getting to that point Kudov, I believe. And I would say about now. Here we go. We're aligning with this guy, and we start descending. Let the autopilot do its thing. We start focusing on the descent. Okay. In 5,000 feet and adjust the vertical speed, and now we start checking the distances and the altitudes. So it says here at 16 nautical miles you need to be at 9,810. 16 nautical miles. We need to speed it up a little. .9810 at 16 nautical miles. I would slow down more since I'm descending the whole time. I'm reducing power, and we're gonna stick to the table. 9810. I don't want to descend more than that at that point. We are on the localizer, and we are going to 60 nautical miles, 9,800. Getting close to 16. Stop. Very good. Next point is 9310 at 15. Probably go down to 5,000. Here we go. Alright, at 1488.10, and we just adjust the vertical speed. Well, a little bit too high, so now at 13 we need to shoot to 8310. A little bit too high still. I'll descend more. At 1278.10. We're still too high. We're gonna descend more or faster. 12 is 7810. 11 is 7310. 11 is 7310. About 300 feet off. It's not too bad still. At 10, 6810. $200 feet off, not too bad. At 9, 6310. At 8, 5810. Oh, getting to the 5,000. Time to look outside. Wow, okay. So decision height is at 5,000. We're supposed to be able to see the runway and continue visually. And so far, so good. We'll level off at 5,000 now. Now I'm going to disconnect the autopilot and continue manually. And it's a good idea also to save the flight now. File, save flight. Do gear down. And that's the runway right there. Flaps 1. And here we go, better view. Touchdown. Okay, and that was it. Coming from west, no GPS, as you can see here. Stop the aircraft. Alright, so just to recap real quick, this is what we did. We took off from EDDM. We caught this radial. We knew the distance was 66 nautical miles. We started turning before to 103 over Elmham. And we knew Elmham was 66 nautical miles from the VOR. And we maintained the altitude. And we maintained this direction of 101. I'm sorry. And then I knew the distance. We're supposed to catch this guy here about 20.4 nautical miles from the localizer. Then we started descending. Once we caught the localizer, we turned to 066 and stayed on the localizer. We started descending according to this table, the DME, and we adjusted the vertical speed accordingly. And the decision height was at 5,000 feet. We were supposed to go visual. If we don't see anything at that point, we have to commence a missed approach. We were able to see everything at that point, so we continued straight ahead. We did the turn back this way, and then we flew over Innsbruck and we landed in that direction. And that's pretty much it. And thank you for watching. View.